Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction. Prishta Svabhava Janita Vapushasha Dosha Na Prakritatvam Bhakta Janasya Pashya Ganga Bhasam Nakalubum Budbudapena Pankair Brahma Dravatvam sorry Brahma Dravatvam Brahma Dravatvam Apagachati Nilakarmahi. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It's exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes, during the rainy season, are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in Ganges without considering the condition of the water. Okay, so I will now chant Mangala Charanam so that we can bring some auspiciousness, and then we will start sharing some thoughts, insights on this particular verse. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadanchikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devan Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhambitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasham Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Vanch Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so without any further ado, thank you so much for this opportunity. Once again, as I introduced at the beginning of this Sangha, of this particular part of the Sangha, understanding this verse and the fundamental principle behind it is essential. It's vital. It's crucially important to really grasp the essence of it, because without it, the whole thing will be ruined. I'll start with some very basic understanding, and I'll share without going anywhere, but from myself, from my side, being a neophyte devotee, how I was making this offense, how I was falling into this corrupt mentality, and how it was just about to ruin my whole understanding of Krishna consciousness, unless that was changed and allow me to go back into the right way of seeing things. When I joined as a devotee, I was attracted by two things. I started practicing yoga because I needed that just for the sake of keeping my body together. And I also came across Vaishnavas. And at that time, I wasn't much aware of any philosophy or anything of that kind. So, I'm still in a relatively young body, 33, but at that time I was about 20 or maybe 19 years old. So I was quite proud of myself, hey, I got a body, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing asanas, I'm this and that. And as you know, people these days, they post a picture on Facebook or something and they get likes and appreciation. So all that develops a certain mentality, a certain understanding of being conditioned by who you are as a body, so to speak. And what does it also nourish? It nourishes your pride, your ability to look at others as if you're somewhat better. But we're going now to see this corrupt mentality in a little more details, because at that time I went around that time I went to Sadhusanga Festival for the first time. And probably many of you haven't been to Russia as yet, but Sadhusanga is a festival where up to 10,000 uh, Russian-speaking devotees come together. So it's a huge gathering, and when you see, you truly get a feeling of Krishna consciousness being not about the body, but about the spirit soul, just like in America, just like in England, just like in Brazil or in any other part of the world, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. These days, we see that Krishna consciousness is not just something that is practiced by Indian people or those of particular body color or body type. No, it's universal science of spirit. It's a spiritual, God conscious science that really allows any person in any part of the world to awaken and get connected to the original self. Now, coming back to where I was joining at Sadhusanga, there was one speaker, very elevated devotee, whom I later got to know, making thousands of people Krishna conscious, connecting them to Krishna consciousness. Yet it so happened that his name is Patita Pavana Prabhu. Yet so happened that he is, in a quite a big body, physically speaking. And I was looking at him, and by the time I already knew that Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that a true yogi is the one who doesn't eat too much and not too little. So I was thinking, what kind of yogi is that? I can do that kind of asana, that kind of asana. But what is this? So with that mentality, all of a sudden I saw how my mind gets into this mood of criticizing, and many things started happening straight away, because when you're in a dham, when you're in a place surrounded by saintly people, you get reactions very quickly. So that made me think, that made me somehow question something is not going right. And Krishna was very kind, that although I'm still a very neophyte devotee, and at that time, to give me some proper understanding. And it wasn't, thanks to him, it wasn't too harsh and too hard to slap me straight at the beginning. But I was just standing in a queue. There was a queue for prasad, and in front of me, there were two Matajis speaking. They were about 40 years old or something, and they were discussing between themselves. And all of a sudden, one of the Matajis started glorifying this particular devotee without me, without her knowing anything about what I was going through in my own mind, in my own heart. They were just talking between themselves. And she was sharing how, amongst all the devotees, amongst all the lecturers, there is one devotee who is truly magnificent, who is truly loving, who is truly caring, who is the abode of all the Vaishnava qualities, who is personally giving her so much inspiration on her spiritual path. And basically, for quite a few minutes, I was hearing the glorification of this particular Vaishnava, whom I looked just without knowing anything about him, completely from a bodily perspective, fully from a pride perspective. And in this way, as we get to know from this verse, inviting a mad elephant into my own mind, into my own spiritual life. But by being fortunate to just stay next to that person who was truly touched by the heart, by the spirit of this particular jiva, of this particular person, I got a chance to understand, my goodness, what a wonderful Vaishnava he is, and how far I am in my, how dare I am even to think anything wrong about him. Because this basically immediately she has taken me from that bodily understanding that literally doesn't mean anything to the point of at least appreciating a person, appreciating a character, what to say of going deeper and understanding the spirit soul, the spirit self behind this particular body. So I wanted to start from the beginning and confess a little bit as a matter of establishing little closer relationships with your Sangha and with Divya Shamachandra Prabhu, his wonderful wife, Nirmala Mataji, and just revealing my heart. In Nectar of Instruction, just a few verses before that, what is it? Six love and exchanges. How does it start? Utsaha. And then, no. The six love and exchanges. Between the devotees. Yes, yes. Dadati pratikrinati. Dadati pratikrinati. Guhyamakyati prichati. Bhunkte bhojate cheva. Tatvidam priti lakshanam. So just before that, you got to know about 6 ways of sharing love between the devotees. So to reveal one's heart and confidence, Guhyam Prakriti Achiti. It's one of the ways to exchange love. So I wanted to share with this confidential pastime of being a bogus yogi, and it took me time, and it's still taking me time to rectify this mentality. But in that sense, I want to keep going in that mood of really reminding, first of all, myself on how important and essential this particular topic is. Now, before we go into the extreme, so one of you or some of you might say, well, it's clear, of course we should not offend a saintly Vaishnava. Of course we should not offend a sadhu. How can we even dare that way? You know, it's all clear. We understand, we understood. So let's take it that way. Let's assume we understand that extreme. But let us make a step back towards where Srila Prabhupada is with the Bhagavad Gita as it is. How many times do you think he repeated in this particular book, which is the essential grounds for all of us to practice Krishna consciousness? How many times he has repeated that we are not the body? In fact, there is some people who dare to criticize Srila Prabhupada for repeating this particular point again and again. You are not this body. In fact, there is some people who even say that Srila Prabhupada is not given enough repeating something basic and not given something of very high elevated level. But this is completely not true. Srila Prabhupada is an expert doctor. He's in a line of even not even absolute. They're on absolute platform. This parampara of divine personalities, the Brahman Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya that is taken it roots directly from Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is given this Bhagavad Gita as it is, where Krishna himself, he says in those 2 beautiful verses in chapter 2, where Gita is summarized, Natvivaham Jatunasam Natvaneme Janadipaha Nachevana Bhavishamaha Sarvivayam Atamparam. So he's saying that never was there a time when you and I did not exist, nor there any will be such a moment when you all shall cease to be. So given this grounds, okay, for the first time at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he starts the very basic spiritual understanding that where you're coming from is false. You're coming from bodily perspective. Although the question you're raising is very important and it's crucial for you, and Arjuna was lamenting like anything, he was immediately at that point giving him the spiritual understanding. What is this next one? 2:13. Dehinasmin yadhadehe komaram yovanam jara tadhadehintaras praptir kirastatrana mukhiti. And then he keeps going. Krishna gives understanding one by one to the very essence, to the very spiritual understanding. Now, usually when we read these verses, when we read this chapter, or even when Srila Prabhupada is repeating it in his book, in his translation, we think, I know that. I know that I understood I'm not the body. Now, this is the key element, because even to understand this very basic principle that I'm not the body, if we truly embrace this understanding, if we truly come to the point of living according to this principle, our whole life will be changed. And you can see it by different symptoms of how much attached you to a particular thing, how much lust you have in your heart, how much fear you have due to whatever situation that comes into your life. So there are some basic criteria that immediately give you understanding how much you actually realize this simple understanding. And once again, here I'm talking as a sadhaka, as someone who is trying to get this understanding, because Srila Prabhupada, it's not a coincidence or accident that hundreds of times he would repeat again and again in the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because as an expert physician, as an expert therapist, as an expert doctor, he sees how much Kali Yuga has penetrated the consciousness of people, of all of us, and therefore he gives this understanding and again uh, to save our life in any kind of situation, because every single day, sometimes every single minute, in fact every single moment, we're challenged by mind. We're challenged by mind because we are so close, our spirit soul is so close to the mind, and the mind already has come with millions of samskars, with billions of samskars. And some of those impressions in the mind are so deep, that they just automatically drive us towards something different. Like every day we wake up and we have some idea of, I don't know, earning money, or looking for a better spouse, or any kind of crazy thing, or and in fact, when we go out just on the street, even with a clear head, with a clear goal, with a clear understanding, with a spiritual understanding, yet no, there is nothing around us that can give us a chance to focus on the goal peacefully. And that's the key point. This is the key thing that becomes either our shield and sword and how you call it, helmet, that can protect us, this understanding of being not the body, or other way around. We can become such an easy thing, because Maya, it's like many, many hooks that fly towards us with all kinds of conceptions, with all kinds of ideas, with all kinds of desires, that immediately steal away the very attention. And like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, attention goes, energy flows. In other words, once our attention, once our mind is caught by any kind of concept or idea or desire, immediately the soul starts falling in that direction, again, due to the close association with the mind, with the body, with the material senses. Now, again, it's it's the ground idea, it's the ground understanding that we need to come back to again and again, in order for further understanding or further beautiful things to sprout from that. And in this particular verse, we come into the understanding of how a person should look at not just a sadhu, not just a Vaishnava, but at anyone, any person, any given person around you. We never know what they have gone through. And very often, just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he has given this wonderful, beautiful concept of seer and the seen. Just like now, uh, the beautiful lordships are there. So when we come to them, do we say, I went for a darshan to see the deities, or I went for a darshan to be seen by the deities? Are we the object or are we the subject? It's a very crucial thing, because the way we see the world is I see, I eat, I do, I manifest, I create, my desire. In other words, we live such a self-centered life as if we are gods, as if we are that person who has created all that for our own enjoyment, and therefore constantly engaging himself in somehow, using the material energy for his own enjoyment. But actually, the key thing, the key understanding is when we become truly a spirit soul, we become meek and humble. I'm going to talk about a little more about this being meek and humble because that shouldn't be understood in the wrong way. There is a certain extreme where behind meek and humble we become, weak-hearted, where we do not become proactive enough. And with Shamachandra Prabhu, we see an example. He's like Hanuman. Hanuman was jumping over the roofs. He was creating so much fire in different places, but that was in a true mood of service to Lord Ram because he wanted to find Sita. So similarly, he's creating so much fire, Krishna conscious fire all around. Wherever he goes, he starts something new and it becomes a success. He starts something new that becomes a success. So being meek and humble doesn't necessarily mean that you become like, no, you can fight. You need to fight against Maya. You can fight and share Krishna consciousness out. You can be full of this vigor and spirit, and yet remain humble, understanding that you are fully dependent on the Lord. So I'm maybe if I have time, I can come back to this understanding because it's essential. Spirit, soul in itself, spirit is very dynamic force. If you can imagine, you've heard it many times that the size of the spirit soul. If you take a hair and take the tip of the hair, and 1 of 10,000 of that tip of the hair would be the size of the soul. So can you imagine that power that the soul has, that even the body of an elephant can move? Can you imagine that even banyan tree can that the living force, how much power is there? So that living force, that power that we're given, if we utilize it properly, that could be a most wonderful act of service in a humble way, in a humble mood. So once again, that was a short digression to understand that humility is actually a very dynamic force, because once we connect it to Krishna's plan, to his vision, to his strategy, if you like, for saving many souls around, then you get empowered with a desire and with a qualification and with ideas on how to implement that. Coming back to the point where I was, today when you were chanting the offenses, what is the very first offense that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is listing on chanting the holy name of the world? It's to holy name of of the world, of the Lord. Uh, it's not my first language, so please forgive any shortcomings of the kind. But the first offense is to commit an offense on the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. And anything and everything, and let me pause here, anything and everything can stop right at the point, on the dot, if even a Vaishnava can be so merciful, so compassionate. Even when he hears that, he might not necessarily take it personally. Being a way more elevated, being not the body, he can just take it as something, not worth looking at or being offended by. But please remember that Lord is not just standing on the altar at the temple or even on the altar in your own house. Lord is residing right in each and everyone's heart as a Paramatma. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that goes away of his sight. So if we dare to make some offense towards a Vaishnava, then even if a Vaishnava doesn't take it personally, especially a saintly Vaishnava, but the Lord hears that, the Lord himself takes an offense. The dust of the feet of a Vaishnava takes an offense. So that's why we should be very careful and very conscious. Again, within that class, I wouldn't be able to because it's quite short, we wouldn't be able to go deeper into that, because you see, right now we understand there is two dimensions. On one side, we should be utmost conscious and utmost, yeah, conscious is a good word, to be fully focused, to be fully present and understanding what we're doing. On the other side, that shouldn't be paralyzing, that shouldn't be making us, so feared and so stressed and so God knows what, that we do not move at all. These two things, gradually by sadhana bhakti, we should learn the art of having this mood, as Srila Prabhupada would say, we should carry this garland of Trinada Visunichina, Tarora Sahishnana, Amanina Manadana Kirtaniya Sadahari. We should carry this mood and this garland of being more humble than the blade of grass and more tolerant than the tree. And at the same time, we should implement with vigor, with desire, with conviction, with enthusiasm, um, the practice of Krishna consciousness. So those both two should be together. And let me just quickly check the time.
The time you can take.
So in the very first section of the purport to the please don't be afraid. It's not that we starting with the purport now and with the first section. That means we just starting the lecture. We keep going, but now I want to bring the next point from the first paragraph. To this particular verse, text number 6, Srila Prabhupada says, Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper, in other words, engagement in the transcendental love and service of the Lord, is performed in a liberated condition. In the Bhagavad Gita 14:26, it is stated, Mamchayo Vyabhicharinam Bhakti Yogina Sevate Sagunan Samajitaitam Brahma Bhuya Kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Now we're coming to a very important understanding, and it's one of the key verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there are many, there are plenty, and everyone would find his own source of inspiration. So for me personally, it just coincided this verses here, but for me personally, it's something that's very dear to my heart. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance. Now, this is something it's easy to say because to say full devotional service, that means full time and that means with full energy. But this is one. The two, who does not fall in any circumstance. In any circumstance. It's not just, oh, should I wake up today and attend this wonderful program or not? Should I chant my rounds or not? Should I read a little bit today or not? Should I, and it's our entire life is like, should I, should I, this, but at some point, and we see this by example of Srila Prabhupada, we see by example of many Vaishnavas who truly embrace this understanding of being not the body, embracing this understanding of being the spirit soul, embracing this opportunity to live this life with dignity, to live this life with understanding and knowledge given by Lord Krishna, to live this life driven by the mercy of the previous acharyas. We see by the example that they become so convinced that they become unstoppable. Srila Prabhupada was unstoppable, literally. And we see by example of many of his direct disciples and disciples of their disciples, just like Shamachandra Prabhu, there was just some small mistake. He said that Bhakti-Vigyan Goswami Maharaj, he is a direct disciple of Srila Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj, who is a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And my wife's Guru Maharaj is Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu, who is a disciple of His Holiness Jayapatak Swami Maharaj, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. But again, the reason I'm saying all these names because we see that not just Srila Prabhupada is unstoppable, but His Holiness Jayapatak Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and so many other God brothers and God sisters are unstoppable. But hey, there is another line. Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, so many others who are unstoppable. But then there is now even more disciples of theirs who are becoming unstoppable. What does it mean? It means that the spiritual side in the parampara of this wonderful elevated Vaishnavas who appear and every next one passes down the knowledge to the further generation. That is so unique, that is so amazing that it gives you this qualification, this ability to become spiritually realized and to live your life, again, I'm repeating this word, with dignity, taking the best use of this life and making this life a perfection. So without this, coming back to the very beginning of our lecture, without this very basic understanding of me being not the body, just on a very practical level, I'm not going into any kind of esoterical, high elevated points, on a very simple level of leading a life uh, of, a loyal to a mission, loyal to a family, loyal to your very self, and loyal to the Lord. Just it. Sorry, maybe it's a very simple thing that I'm trying to say in a complicated way. I'm just trying to say that basically to make this life a success, this is a preliminary condition of taking yourself off the bodily platform, of taking yourself off the mental platform, and then becoming spiritually realized. Now, how does that work? Again, this particular verse that Srila Prabhupada is quoting right at the beginning of this purport is explained here, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Now here, I want to stress your attention again. I want to say something very important so that we connect to this understanding. If we want to come to that level, uh, sorry, I just saw this blissful, the line blissful soul. So we all want to be a blissful soul. So how to become a blissful soul? How to become unstoppable? How to become a person who would lead a life of dignity and ultimately come to perfection? By facing those challenges. When we say he is unfallable, that means that there will be some things that will try to make him fall down. It means that what does it mean to be fully engaged in devotional service? It means that we will face certain challenges that will not allow us to be fully engaged in devotional service. But what does it lead us to? That we will eventually come to the point of being able to transcend the modes of material nature. Do you see what I mean? So in other words, the whole world and every day for a sadhaka becomes like a training ground where he ultimately reaches to that point of coming to the spiritual, more elevated platform. And this is a good thing for us to know. It means it's not that, because you might get confused. Well, I'm not getting it. What should I do, or how do I do it? But this is the point. Srila Prabhupada has given us the prescription. He gave us he gave us 4 regulative principles, 16 rounds, and by reading Nectar of Instruction, by getting to know other instructions, this is why this book is so essential. It's the nectar of instruction. It has given you the instruction to follow, and simply by trying to follow this instruction, you basically you say to my, hey, I'm here, and just by trying to follow that, you immediately face Maya testing you, because Lord Krishna sees your intention and he will help you to gradually spot any particular point that you still carry in your heart as an artha that I carry in my heart as an anartha, as an unwanted desire or unwanted quality, and he will help us to eradicate that. And with this understanding, we can really take shelter of the spiritual culture, spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding, so that we can gradually come to that platform that Srila Prabhupada is talking about of transcending the modes of material nature and come into this spiritual realization of being not the body and being the spirit soul. And just a few more minutes before we finish, and you can ask some questions if there is anything that you want to ask, you're most welcome to. And once this basic understanding and basic principle is there, then there is no question of seeing others, what to say of saintly Vaishnavas from a bodily perspective. So here in this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada translating that one should overlook a devotee having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. Why? Because who cares? Who cares what kind of body one's got? The question is who the person is. What are the qualities? What is his character? What are his deeds? What kind of mood or energy or knowledge or words that he's bringing into this life? He, I don't even want to say much because by now it seems to be obvious. So that part becomes quite clear. But the only thing which is important to remember, if the grounds are not cleared, if we are very much engrossed by the idea of the body and by the idea of the mind and all those things which are there sitting on us, that becomes not such an easy thing. We might fall down in this not concept, but the tendency to criticize, to see others from above, because I know, I understand, my vision is right. I have a most balanced understanding of different spheres of life. Therefore, I can criticize, I can look at others. Unless our spiritual master tells us, you should sometimes criticize. You should see the fault. You should explain to others how and what to do wrong. Do not go there. Look at yourself more often in the mirror. Something is happening. Look at yourself more often in the mirror, and looking in at the mirror, ask yourself, what can I do better? How I can be a better person? How can I be a more spiritually realized person? And let us lead a day and lead a life in such a way that we will remind constantly ourselves that we're the one who are yet to become spiritually realized, and we're the one who want to serve all those wonderful Vaishnavas despite any particular odd thing is there about their character, what to say about their body. I will finish here or at least I'll pause here. If there is any questions, I will answer. If there is no questions, I'll just try to summarize it all so you have a more clear structured understanding what we have discussed today, and we will end the class here. So please take maybe 30 seconds to think if there is anything that you want to ask. And my kind request, just in case you don't have questions, I heard that some of you, is it a Zoom call that or everyone?
WebEx.
It's a WebEx,
Yeah.
so they can participate as well and say something?
Yeah.
Okay. So dear devotees, what I want to ask you, you're welcome to ask questions if you have. If you don't, those who feel like they understood or they heard something, please share any one point that you particularly will take away from this class. That will help us to remember what we were talking about, and that will help you to speak out something that would stay with you in your heart, in your mind. So I hope you were there, and please forgive any shortcomings, and I must welcome you to participate now and share this one thing that you personally feel you will take away from this lecture, from this class. Anyone? Rajat, Radhika, Sneha, Simi, Ritu, I'm really curious to see your faces, or at least to hear your voice. Everyone is most welcome to step in.
Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes, yes, Mother.
the one thing which I learned from today's session is that the Krishna is in your heart. As Paramatma, he's in your heart. So whether the other person is seeing you, whether you do good thing or bad thing, but at least Krishna, who is sitting in your heart, he knows whether you are doing the right thing or the wrong thing. So whenever you speak, whenever you do any deed, you should, in your subconscious mind, you should know that whatever you are doing, Krishna is there to see you. So you become very before acting anything, you become a bit conscious that you should be doing the things in a right manner, because Krishna is there who is watching you. So that is very important point which I learned from today's session. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Manish Mataji, if I got the right name there. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's indeed very important. Anyone else? I say Rita Mataji, I believe. Was it Rita Prabhu?
Jai Shri Krishna,
Jai.
Prabhuji.
Jai.
This is Ritu Saxena. Yes. Jai Shri Krishna. So what I believe and what I understood that Krishna Thakurji is inside you. You just need to recognize that. Once you recognize that, you know, the Paramatma, which is just next to your soul, and he's talking to you. So whenever you are doing something, you have to make sure that you are actually giving that to Thakurji, that Paramatma which is inside you, and obviously that Paramatma is also there in other people also. So whatever you do, just give it to Thakurji. Whatever you think, whatever you offer, just first give it to Thakurji. Once you do that, then you know that you will love. So, and always say thanks to, you know, to everybody, because everybody is a part of Kakati. So that's what I felt, that every heart blessed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing this insight as well. I see there is two questions in the chat box. Maybe before I proceed there, anyone else who's willing to share any particular point that he or she took from this class?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dayal Prabhu.
How we understand that Bhagavan Krishna is residing as a Paramatma in our heart or in my heart. So the understanding is when I say something, or when it's, the words or the actions of minds, when it directed toward another living entity, whether it's in a human being or any living entity, I should understand that it is an interaction with another Paramatma which is residing in that body, or that any actions of mine or the words of mine, if it is going to hurt that living entity, I should understand clearly that it is not only that soul, it is the Paramatma also I am offending, because that Paramatma which is residing in me is residing in all living entities. So that should be in my consciousness when I am interacting with another living. A Paramatma who is residing, as a Paramatma, Bhagavan Krishna is residing in all the living. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. If I got it right, because with the second speaker, I believe it was Ritu Mataji, the sound was breaking up here a bit, but it seems like all three devotees were talking on that particular point, that basically we should be conscious there is someone who is a constant witness to everything that we're doing, everything that we're saying, and even everything that we're thinking. We know that in Kali Yuga, we're not in the imagine that in previous ages, you will be punished. I mean, the law of karma will punish you for even thinking in a corrupt way. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine where would we be if in Kali Yuga it will be the same? My God, we all will be doomed. So in Kali Yuga, it's not exactly that way. We're not punished for our thoughts, but let us be careful, because whatever we do, it starts. What is this beautiful sequence? It starts with a thought, then it comes as a word, then the word comes as a deed, then deed comes as a habit, and then habit comes as a character, and then character falls as a destiny. Do you see the chain? So if we're not aware of what we're thinking about, if we're not conscious of what's happening in our mind, then it can come out in some unlucky moment, and it can gradually build up to a whole ruination. So thank you, all three of you, for sharing this this precious insight that you took away from this class. Anyone else willing to share one particular point? So I will meanwhile read those two questions that I have in the chat box, and we'll start gradually wrapping up. If there is any one more person who wants to say something, you're most welcome to as well. Whatever material impermanence. Okay, I see it's Vinitra. Vinitra Mataji sharing her insight as well. Thank you for that. Whatever material impediments come in our life, if we're determined to advance in bhakti, we can by grace of Krishna. Thank you so much. Shamachandra Prabhu is saying amazing devotee, and it's even more important to hear that from an amazing devotee who is sharing the insight, because we can understand we can. All of us, I'm talking for myself personally, I'm going through not a very easy and quite a challenging period of my own life. So to be reminded that we can, by the grace of Krishna, transcend the modes, and we can understand why Krishna is given these hardships. We can find those things that we need to eradicate in our heart that is giving pain to our heart. We can by the grace of Krishna. So thank you so much, Vinit Ramaj. And one last question to take. How to maintain the determination to do bhakti in our daily life? Can you share some tips? Yes, there is many wonderful tips, and I will share one only because it's very, it's one of the most essential, and it's something that I can focus on at the end of this lecture so that you can all proceed to your daily duties. Association, 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 and I can say 108 times this word association. It's crucial, it's vital. Sadhusanga. I just, Shamachandra Prabhu said, as you see, I'm in Dubai right now in his wonderful house, in the house of those beautiful lordships. Shishini Tai Sundar Gaur Nataraj. I wanted to make sure I get the name right of their beautiful lordships. And it's amazing how it's working.
If you will not name Gopal and Gopali, it will be a problem for us.
So with just seeing them, they're working full time, both of them. They're taking so much responsibility, so much service. Yesterday, it so happened that we went late at night back to the house. So still, they're determined, despite they have to do so many things, and they have to care, and they have to accomplish so many responsibilities. Every single day, they arrange this program. They have taken this responsibility, and now they are empowered. So now, all of a sudden, I'm talking about two things. So two things are there that I want to, and I promise to finish here. The first thing is sadhusanga. For me, just because I'm here, I'm receiving this precious association of seeing someone being determined, of seeing someone applying the principles of bhakti in a daily life. So Srila Prabhupada was comparing just like iron gets into fire and becomes iron hot. So I'm getting this energy, I'm getting this example, but I'm with my eyes, with my heart, on a subtle level as well. So it's so important that you stay connected to devotees. You stay in a bunch, just like Srila Prabhupada was given this example that a small stick can be broken, but when it's, how you call it, not a broom, but a bunch of sticks. Yeah, you cannot broken. You cannot break it. So similarly, by staying in association, we absorbing, we are receiving, we are adopting all those qualities of those people whom we're with. So find at least one, ideally he becomes your spiritual master, at least one person who is fully determined, and take his association very closely. I'm not talking about physical association. You can hear all the time through the sound, through shabda, you can receive so much determination. But also find your shiksha guru, find those who are giving you instructions, find those friends who can be a like-minded sangha. So association on all three levels: those who are senior to you, those who are your peers, and those who are your juniors whom you're sharing the knowledge with. So on all three levels, be very much protected by the Sangha, and then determination will naturally come to follow. In fact, even if you will have no determination, just because you're surrounded by the Sangha, they will keep you. They will keep you in a place. They will give you the spiritual understanding, remind you of spiritual knowledge. So Sadhusanga is essential. And the second thing that I was mentioning when I was talking about Chamachandra Prabhu, when you take the mission, when you take the understanding, the idea that I want to help, I want to share, I want to serve, basically when you start being too much focused on yourself, but you start thinking of others, Krishna starts giving you empowerment. Krishna starts giving you ideas, knowledge, and he basically he starts personally caring about you. And this is something that we can all try to, if we're not ready for Sarvadharmam Parityaja, Mamavam Sharanam Raja, Aham Tvam Sarvapapabhyo, Moksha Shami Mashuchaha. If we feel like I cannot surrender in this very second, I still have a lot of fear, at least little by little, if we start caring about others, if we start serving others, if we start making some steps to help others to progress in spiritual life, then Krishna starts giving our own self-empowerment, all protection, all resources, everything needed so that we can be determined in our own life. So those two key tips I would feel is, I personally want to carry till whatever, forever. So, and I definitely want to share that out because it's working. These are the key essential tips to stay determined. And Shamachandra was saying, by association with you, you inspire him. So you see, this is we all in that sense we're all one. I don't want to finish with an impersonal concept, but in heart, as a person, everyone is a person. We're all individuals, but we can become one in spirit, one in this united effort to go back to their lordships. Okay, so it's a pleasure. I'm very grateful. Hare Krishna. I'm just reading your comments and yes, thank you. Thank you all so much. Krishna is the only endurer indeed. And all glories to
Raj, Gopal Gopali, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani, and Radha Kunjaji.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your wonderful association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Shaktyavesh Prabhu, for giving us your realization and the wonderful class. So we seek in the future as well, Shaktyavesh Prabhu and Amoglida Mataji, her very nice wife. They will also give us time once in a month and share their realization. So every one of us need association, the friends. So Krishna arranged the friends for you as well. Those who are good devotees, they want to advance in Krishna consciousness. So automatically the arrangement will happen. Man is a social animal. Sometimes we say man is a, so we cannot live alone. We need some friends. So Prabhupada has given a very big society. Wherever you will land in the world, you will find devotees all over the world, whatever the country is there. So this is all the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, that he is giving this Krishna consciousness. This is a matchless gift, and we should take the responsibility to tell other as well and make them and inspire them while living in a Grihastha ashram, while working also, no problem at all. You can adjust the things and bring them to Krishna consciousness. So I will just wanted to regarding this shloka, but Prabhu has said a wonderful lecture. By Prabhu's permission, I just wanted to share one pastime of Srila Prabhupada. 2 minutes, it will just take 2 minutes. So once upon a time, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan with his devotees, his disciples. So one of the disciples of Prabhupada, who was an American, went to visit our, temple in Vrindavan. So that Goswami said to Prabhupada disciple that you are a hippie and you are American, you are not actually a pure, you're not born with a pure consciousness. So next birth you will born in Vrindavan in Goswami Parivar, and then after getting birth in Goswami family, you will become a pure devotee and go home back to Godhead. Then he was very upset. He said, "Oh my God, I am very fallen." So he discussed this with Srila Prabhupada, same thing what he heard and studied there. Then Prabhupada replied to this devotee disciple who was a sannyasi, was not an ordinary. I just don't want to make name, but we want to learn the teaching. So Prabhupada said to this disciple that go again to that devotee again, to the Goswami, and tell them that in next birth, you will get a birth in America in the womb of the mother and hippies, who are the hippies, and you will become hippie. Then our foreigner devotees will go and they will contact you and they will preach you Krishna consciousness. Then you will become devotee. And after coming to this Krishna consciousness, you will purify yourself and then you will go home back to God. So this was Srila Prabhupada state. Prabhupada is very merciful. Prabhupada is very, very Patita Pavan. Prabhupada is a Jagat Guru. Prabhupada is everything for us. Prabhupada is giving a matchless gift to us. So Prabhupada is so loving. Prabhupada has so much love for all the jivas, all the living entities. Although they were, offending the devotees, but Prabhupada still want to bring this devotee as well home back to Godhead by some arrangement. So Prabhupada, we are very thankful and thank you, Shaktyavesh Prabhu, for giving us your valuable association and Amoglila Mataji as well. So we will end our session. Thank you for your wonderful time and association. You always inspire us. And we'll meet and see you tomorrow by paying obeisances. And the session. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha कृपा सिंधुभय एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो श्री वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कुंज बिहारी भगवान की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। So I wish you all happy and blissful Krishna consciousness day. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. Thank you.